Let's take a look in this video at a couple of samples from two students that took the Consistent Cursive course at consistentcursive.com. This is a free course that I put out a month or two ago, and these students went through the course. They did a before sample, which you can see from this student. This is Morgan's work. Morgan's before sample is up here, and then her after sample is down here. And I just wanted to show you what's possible when you spend really a little bit of time and a little bit of dedication working on your handwriting. You know, what you can do, whether you're taking the course at consistentcursive.com or just doing some study on your own. You know, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to see some dramatic results. And with Morgan, I think we are seeing that. And we look at her before sample. We're seeing a lot of issues here with all of the categories of consistency in cursive handwriting, those being size, spacing, slant, shape. If we just look at, you know, size, for example, we can see, if we look at this H here, we can see how tall this H is, and then the I right after that's only coming up that high. And the S is really not coming up much higher than the I, and it's coming below the baseline. This S is coming below the baseline. See how tall this M is? And then look how tall this Y is. You know, it's much smaller. Or this W is not coming up as high as that M. So there's the size is all over the place in this before sample. Same with the slant. Let's look at this word consistent. Look at these two T's in this word consistent. We have that T on that slant, and then this happens with a lot of people. As you're getting to the end of the word, their slant starts to fall over to the right, and this last T is on this slant line. So you can see those two totally different slants in that one word. You know, and that's not the only problem there with slant. You can see it in the other letters, but those letters really exemplify it. The spacing here, we can find some problems with spacing. I don't mean to beat up on Morgan's work. She said it's okay for me to share this with you. She wanted to hear the critique, and she obviously saw this stuff herself because she made the changes and she improved her writing. We'll take a look at her after sample in a second. Look at the S here and the I. Look how tightly packed those are together. They almost look like one letter. Or the O and the N here in consistent. Really super tightly packed together. So those are just some of the issues. If we look at her after sample, we see some beautiful cursive writing here. She's made tons of improvement. I mean, look at the consistency of her writing here, of the size. You know, the H and the I, they're both hitting the baseline. They're both coming up to the X height as they should. That S is just peaking up above the X height as it should. You know, we looked at the M and the Y in the before sample. Looking really great there. She missed the baseline just a tad there with that Y, but huge improvement with the size in her writing. I'm seeing that throughout all of these words. If we look at the slant, we just look at those two T's and consistent again. I mean, consistent. Look at these two T's, the angle they're on, very similar angles. And I'm seeing that similar angle in all of her writing. Okay. And it's that consistency of slant that really brings your writing together and makes it look cohesive. If we look at spacing, the S and the I here were really slammed together. Now you can see they have a nice little gap in there. Much better. Same with this O and the N here in consistent. We have a nice gap between those two letters, whereas before she had really put them right close together. And the spacing is just looking very consistent, just from a general, you know, taking a step back and looking at the writing. It's looking very consistent. So, you know, Morgan's made, you know, some significant changes to her writing here. Really applaud her for that. And she did it in 6 weeks. So it's totally possible. You know, she was posting things on Instagram, you know, on most days, it felt like, for a month or so. She was consistently putting up her practice work on Instagram. She was tagging me. I was giving feedback. So she used, you know, she leveraged some dedication to produce the results that you're seeing here. And it just takes a little bit of dedication. I don't think she was practicing cursive hours and hours a day. but she was doing it on a regular basis. And when you do it on a regular basis and you have a little guidance, you can come a long way. So that is Morgan's work. Let's take a look at Joanna's work. So I put this down. So Joanna's work, the improvement is maybe a little more subtle. Okay, let me just center it up there. So Joanna started out with a fairly good cursive hand. You know, maybe more advanced is the wrong word, but she definitely had a quality, you know, very readable, legible cursive hand, as we're seeing up here at the top. And in the matter of 3 weeks, you know, started November 25th, and she did her after sample on December 16th. So not even a whole month, she made this change in her writing. And I'm showing Joanna's work because, for one, she was a great student and she went through the course and she, you know, practiced and shared her work. But two, she's also showing a different kind of change. You know, she had a fairly consistent hand before, but she more changed the style of her writing, and we can see that different style in her writing. In the before sample, we can see it's much more upright and vertical. So we look at, like, the slant line on this T is in this direction, whereas if we look at the slant line in her after sample, it's definitely a little more to the right. Okay, not quite as upright. So she's decreased the slant of her writing a little bit, which is, you know, consistent with when you learn a traditional hand, they tend to be a little more slanted. And along with that change in the slant, her writing has become less kind of loopy or curly. All right, and we can see that, you know, in things like, even like this F here, kind of has this curve to the back of it like that. Or this R, see how this is coming up and it has this curve in it like this. And then if we look at her after sample, you know, this F here is nice and straight and along the back of the F, and the R has this very traditional look to it there. Okay, and I'm seeing that throughout all of the writing. It's become more angular. It has more of a slant to the right, or that we could say the slant degrees has decreased. And it's what you see when somebody, you know, starts learning a more traditional style of cursive. Okay, in the American sense. And, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know why this is, but when somebody has more vertical or upright writing and it's loopier or more bubbly, you might say, it's seen as more childish. When you switch to a more traditional style of writing that has a little more slant to it, or the slant angle has decreased, it becomes more angular, and it becomes, for whatever reason, people see it as more mature or adult-like or elegant. And we've seen that change here with Joanna's writing. Not saying one is better than the other, but Joanna wanted to learn this, and she did, and we're seeing the transformation of her writing. Even though you might not think one of these is more readable than the other, we've seen the change in the style. I mean, look how much more, you know, spaced out her writing is, which I would argue does make her writing more readable. That these letters are more spaced out. She's putting more space between the letters than she did before. See, these spaces are much smaller between the letters, and that makes a big difference as well with the writing, just the look of it and the maturity of it. So just a different kind of improvement, or a different kind of transformation with this sample with Joanna's work. And I think Joanna probably wouldn't have much of a problem going back to writing like this. So if she wanted to change to use her before style or this less traditional style, she could easily do that now that she's learned a new one. It's not like when you learn something new, you totally forget how to write your old way. She now understands script at a higher level, understands cursive at a higher level, and she can now, you know, modulate her style to her liking when she pleases. So just wanted to show you that as well. These two samples from Morgan and Joanna. Thank you so much to both of them for allowing me to do a little video about this, posting it here on YouTube. I hope it just gives people an idea of what's possible when you take the course at consistentcursive.com, or when you just spend a little time working on your handwriting, whatever that means to you, whatever course you're following or book, or just doing your own personal study. Change is possible, transformation is possible with your handwriting. It just takes a little bit of dedication.